So I love Brian Head Welch, or I did love Brian Head Welch. I used to love his music. I loved KORN. I read his book for the first time when I was going through some struggles of my own. I actually don't have it anymore because I gave it away to someone at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I thought I could help them more than I could help me. Brian's story is absolutely amazing. He had a crippling meth addiction and he kicked his meth addiction with what he believes is the help from God and from church and from religion. Now, I used to eat this up a lot because I was a Pentecostal youth pastor. I was very involved in religion. I believed everything that was happening to Brian was demonstration of God's existence. However, I no longer believe in God. I'm actually an agnostic atheist. And that's a bit of a journey that you can look at my other videos to kind of find out. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of watch his video, his most recent video, and kind of just look at like how my perspective has changed on some of the stuff that he talks about. Now, this popped up today and I thought, hey, this is quite interesting. And a couple of things jumped out at me and I was like, I'd love to add some commentary from a dirty unbeliever to some of this stuff. And Brian, if you're watching this, I'd love to have you onto the Deep Drinks podcast. Choose your favorite drink and we sip it together as we discuss deep things. I've interviewed everyone from Christian philosophers to Hare Krishnas to people who have left their faith because it conflicted with their LGBT identity. So if you'd be willing to give me some of your time, I'd love to have you on to discuss some of these big ideas. So let's check out your video.
Organized religion can be very misleading, and scripture out of the mouth of the wrong person can be very dangerous. So make sure and search these things out yourself. 1 Corinthians, all that I know now is incomplete. One day, I will know everything completely, just as God now knows me completely. And it's very deep because think about how God knows everything about us right now. Jesus says that he knows the number of hairs on our head. He knows everything about us. He knows everything about the world. He knows everything about suffering and why and all.
So this point jumped out to me because it's actually quite an interesting point to dive into. So something that I always like to ask Christians or anyone who kind of believes in this doctrine. So the question is, did God know that Adam and Eve would sin before he decided to create them exactly the way they are? And then obviously you can roll this out all the way down the line. Because if God knows everything and he knows the future, did God know that I was going to sin and fall short or reject the Christian faith, but still decided to make a universe where the neurons in my brain and the outcomes around me would result in that and could not result in any other thing because he knows the future and he knows exactly what he's creating. In which case, how on earth could you punish anyone if they had no other option? Now, I know Christians straight away will say, we do have a choice. We have a choice to sin every single day. But that's not what I'm talking about. There is no free choice. If God knows exactly who we are and what we're going to do in our life, builds us a certain way and puts us in that environment. Like, what are we going to surprise God? Are any of our actions going to be a surprise or something that God didn't foresee happening? In which case, how can anyone be punished for their lack of belief or for their sin? Now, there are a few ways to deal with this problem. You can say that, yes, God just knows and certain people get punished and they go to hell and stuff. Therefore, God is an evil God. And I've actually heard some people make that argument that, too bad, God is just like that. Now, that isn't satisfactory for some people. And the second and more likely scenario is I hear people say that maybe God isn't omniscient. Maybe he doesn't know everything. And then I've heard other people say that maybe God is omniscient, but he's chosen not to be omniscient in the creation of the universe. Either way, this is actually quite a hard problem to solve in theology.
I would bet that the number one desire that all of you have, including me, all of us, whether we admit it or not, is the knowledge if God is real. Because if God is real, then every other question is going to be answered eventually.
Yeah, I would actually agree that if there is a creator, that would be an important question to answer. And part of the reason why I rejected my faith, even though I had some tremendously powerful experiences, and even though I credited getting over many things in life to God, is I no longer had the ability to rationally justify a God. I had to be honest with myself and say, okay, well, I have all these amazing experiences and I have these feelings, but members of other religions also have these experiences and these feelings. And there are people who have faith is strong enough to set themselves on fire, like the Buddhist monks, or to blow themselves up in Islamic extremism. That's a strong faith, a faith stronger than I ever had. And so how do I compare myself to them? If faith can lead me to Yahweh and lead someone else to Allah or Krishna or Buddha or Zeus, doesn't that demonstrate that faith is an unreliable pathway to truth? It was actually the morality that was taught to me through my Christian faith that actually had me reject it. You see, I believe that truth and honesty were always the way that you should go. And I came to believe that by examining my faith, I would always end up at the same conclusion that I was already at, because of course God was real, right? So there was no reason I had to protect my faith. And as soon as I made that decision to stop protecting my faith and to look at the evidence for what it was, I discovered some holes, and those holes continued to grow bigger and bigger. But I believe that the right thing to do was to be intellectually honest and say, hey, we don't know the reasons to this yet. We don't have the answers. And so therefore I can't claim it's a God.
And I can't wait. 2022 is here and we're living it.
Brian, I know that you're a deep person. I know that you think about these things. It's actually quite reason why I like you and have respect for you. You challenge the ideas that we have about God and religion and things like that. And I love that. It's time to see religion die, right? I love your message. And so I hope that you got some value out of my thoughts, even if you disagree with them. And it's totally okay to disagree with my thoughts. Anyway, I'd love to have you on to the Deep Drinks podcast if you'd like to. And also I'd love to hear from some of your fans. I'll be commenting down below and chatting to you guys. So if anyone else thinks my perspective is wrong, totally happy to hear why. I'm always open to changing my mind with new evidence. Stay blessed. See you guys.